Hi there. My cousin Nisha asked me why you are not coloring your nails. And guess what, guys? I did. I proudly did it. You see the nails? I'm asking myself, how come everybody in this world spends so many time in the nails? Well, we are not here to talk about nails, but you can see the back of my hands color and filthy. That's why I call the nail just to try to justify all this painting. That's happened when you are a painter. Oh, no, 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 no. When you have a cheap pen in your pocket. Okay. Now, you see somebody here sitting with me, right? And you're questioning yourself, who the heck is that in the back? Well, this is a very close friend of mine called Walker too, and we have been sharing on a couple of years our talents in the educational field. His name is John Massay, or as the unit coordinator call, correct me all the time, Massay. He will tell you who he is and how to pronounce his last name. Go for it, John.
Well, it's thank you for having me here, Hector. The name is Massay. It's spelled Massay instead of the Massey you're accustomed to see. So it's just difference in pronunciation, but I will say a rose by any other name, spelled by any other name, is just as sweet.
Okay, and if you still have a doubt about it, check the link and you will see the name the way it's written. Hello, somebody. And you will be asking, why Hector invite John to this? What did John have to do with Héctor Luis Sin Censura in our new section and now in English? But let me tell you something. When I started working with this gentleman, I was fooling around, I was rehearsing one of the plays I was doing, and one day he handed a paper to me and said, read this. When I read that, I said, whoa, this can be a perfect monologue. Who wrote this? And he said, me. And I found out that John Massay is an excellent, a very good writer ready to be published. And I say, now that I'm going to start my session and now in English, I have to him here because I want to have that exclusive ever. Yes, people, we found a writer. Mr. John, so many people don't know from my audience who you really are. How do you define yourself? How you will answer the question, who are you?
Well, first of all, just a country boy from Guyana, trying to manage the bright lights of America. That sums it. That sums
Wow!
it up.
That's simple?
That's simple.
Right? That's simple. But wait until you hear about his work. I really like it. It was a very profound piece. And then during the time, we shared so many writings during our lunchtime, of course. It's amazing. It's so amazing that he finished working in a play under my direction in the William B. Monster Cultural Center. Tell them about your experience as an actor.
Well, that was the first time. That was the first time ever that I ended up on a stage, and I must thank you for that. I was always concerned that I would forget my lines. That was my major problem. I'd forget my lines. But you assured me that, listen, if you forget your lines, you're the only person who knows that.
Yes.
So I felt very comfortable after a while, and I'm ready to go again.
And that time, I realized that he also have an good acting skill, because guess what? You know how moody I am? That day I decided not to do the part that I was rehearsing with him the whole time, and I give him another actor that do the part. And guess what? He answered that perfect. He forgot. Wasn't me. Wasn't another actor. And he. How you make the transition? Tell us about.
Well, first of
I
all,
never asked you about that.
Well, first of all, you have to tell your audience that it was a Spanish and English play, and you were supposed to be speaking in Spanish.
Yes.
And we sorted out certain things to know when I will come in. Then I got there, and you telling me the person doesn't speak English. So the person doesn't speak English.
In real life.
I don't speak Spanish, and there we are. Have to go through at least 10 minutes of working together. However, I think we did a half an hour rehearsal.
Yes.
And then we ended up sort of putting the action in such a way that I know when to come in.
Guys, you know me. If that wasn't working, I will put the lights off and the play was over and people enjoy that experience. But today, I just want to show you how versatile this guy is, because he came from business to education, and to link those two careers with his hobby and his true passion, writing, was what bring him here today. Now we can add to his summary, resume, acting, writing. Oh, maybe one of these days he will direct me. Who knows? Now, let's go to the point about the writing skill. Mr. John, since when did you start writing?
Well, I was about 15 years, 15, 16, and I started writing for the letters to the editor in Guyana. And it was always a joy. I couldn't afford to buy the papers. So when you send in a letter, you don't know when it will be published. So every day from the time you send in the letter, you have to be looking at the papers to see when it's published. And those times that you see it published, it's a joy. You see the headline and the byline by John Massay. So it's joy. And then, fortunately, my job that I had sponsored me to do a public communications course at the University of Guyana.
Oh.
And that course concentrated on journalism and public relations. So it was still in the act of writing. It was still in the stream of writing. But then when I came over to the States, you have to hustle. You have to survive. So the writing took second place, but it never left me, if you say that.
The very first thing that I read from him was very, very strong. It was about a rape, but wasn't about a rape between this, I believe, female and army people, soldiers. But more than that, was the rape of a community. Was when you read and get deep in the reading, it's not just the fact of the rape. It was the rape of the country, a rape of the community, a rape of the culture itself. And that's what really shocked me. I said, this man is not just going for one thing, play a metamorphosis that take you to another dimension through the reading. What motivated you to write that play? That story, I say play because I'm ready to put it on stage, guys.
It was, and that's an astute conclusion, because the rape did happen. Let me back up.
The real physical rape.
Yeah, the physical rape did happen, but it was a set of people that invaded a community, a small village community, and rapes happened. You had drugs, you had guns, you had abuses.
Social problem in the community.
Yeah.
Or they bring those things.
Right. But what I used the rape to symbolize everything that happened. And it's great that you picked that up. The rape, during the narrative, I mentioned the people, they were called the Taliban. You mentioned the actual killings in the village. But more than that, the rape, as you said, was of a community. It raped the harmony of the village. It raped the willingness of people to respond to this invasion in a way that would, push them out.
Yes.
They didn't have the strength because of that rape and because of the drugs and the guns and fear of retribution and all of that. But that was the
The
that was
mobile,
the
the motivation.
yeah. So I took that rape of that woman, and you know that's the most degrading thing that can happen to a woman, and I used her to highlight everything that was happening in the community at the time. Um, and one of the things I will read for you, excuse me, one of the things I will read for you, because I don't want to give you the ending.
No, of course not.
One of the things I read for you is the contemplations of this young lady at the end, sometime when you're ready for that. But I can start by reading the first part of that.
Yeah, start.
I'm not gonna read the.
This is your show, and you have to show your skill, your writing skills, man. What's the name of the story specific?
This story is the Taliban in Buxton. Buxton is a village that I came from. It's very Afrocentric. It had almost every industry that you could think about. Economic, you had pubs, we call them rum shop in Guyana at the time. You have grocery stores, you have hardware, you have haberdasheries, you have, social organizations, you had even gamble houses, So we had everything. We had bakeries. But the part that I'm going to read, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very traumatic. I'll read up to
whatever you offer in my audience. We appreciate that. And, it's the pleasure to hear a reading from the writer. That's a 10 plus.
I was thinking I was going to die. Please, Lord, don't make me die. Please. My bleeding hands were tied tightly together above my head, with a rope attached to the headboard of the wooden bed frame. They were hurting. My duct-tape mouth was affecting my breathing, or was it fear? I didn't know. All I knew, I was gasping for air. Minutes earlier, he had ripped my blouse open and gently unhooked my brassiere to expose my breasts, ample for a 19-year-old. He showed a fascination with my breast, lingering over them, touching them gently with his jagged fingers. He then rolled the tight blue denim skirt above my navel to expose the black underwear. The sight of the underwear must have enraged him as he promptly ripped it off. With that act, he ruined my last level of defense. I went into the other details of the rape that I want your audience to read. And I took that and I expanded it and I introduced.
And that is it, because what I like from your writing is it's like a microscope that you want adjusting until you can see how big the story gets.
Yeah. I introduced an 80-year-old, and let's understand this is fiction. It happened, but this is fiction.
Yeah.
The incident happened, but this is fiction. And I introduced.
It's like those movies that say based on true events, but we changed the name.
Yeah. I introduced an 80-year-old woman in the community who was the only person who attached herself and tried to deal with these guys. And she was she's 80 years old, and I guess they had some respect for age, and she was going after them. She was the only one. But in the end, I want to read the last part of this story.
Of the Taliban
in Buxton. Okay. So it comes under the heading of contemplations. Rachel, the person who was raped, the name is Rachel, and as I said, it's fictional. It has been 8 years, 8 brutal years. 8 years I have been frozen by pain. At nights, I lie on my restless pillow at the nadir of my emotional roller coaster, still contemplating existential issues. My ordeal still torments me. I believe my higher education and career dreams would have consumed my heart. Instead, I grew up trying to understand the Christian faith, always forgetting and forgiving. Somewhere I learned that loving one's enemies conforms to the image of Christ. The idea that frustrates me most within this work, so cherished, is the notion that I should do unto others what I would like them to do to me. For the past 8 years, I have wanted to exterminate the person who violated me. Period. Can anyone understand that?
Wow.
The ability to not forget corrupts the power to forgive. Can I survive another 8 years with my sacred memories? My memories nurture my hurt. Leaving Buxton will do no good. I will hurt any place. My presence is my past. How can I prevent this past from determining my future? What dynamics can I experience that will influence me to remember and not hurt, or to hurt and not seek revenge? Why hasn't this happened yet? Mom speaks to me daily about my inner rage. She says, "Forget it, forgiving helps the victim." Oh, mama, you don't have my memories. Are my actions, are all actions forgivable? Can I complete my schooling to study law and prosecute these crimes impartially? I do not know. Can I? Does this notion of forgiveness imprison me? And it goes on to give you an ending which I will not give you
Don't give it. Don't give it because they have to read it
because
and
there's
find how you unify everything there to make their rage.
and I think there's a big twist. And I think this is when you read it and you saw the end that you wanted to do
Yes, the monologue.
a monologue.
Okay, he said we have already heard about the Taliban in Buxton, and now he mentioned that he emphasized the community, and the family is always present in his writing in one way or another. Perhaps he used the image of the one member of his family and transform into a character. And that is what I experienced when I was reading Swimming Lesson, a very powerful short story, totally different from the Taliban and Buxton sense. This time is the experience of a young guy, an adolescent in the time to make changes, and it's very interesting how they put the family values with the religious concept and how integrated that together in the community, in the family, and how that teaches us. Let's introduce the swimming lesson. What you have to say about that one is totally different from the Taliban.
Yeah, but I want to go back before I do swimming lessons and give you the basis of my stories.
Go for it.
You touched on it, but and this will be in my preface in the book.
We're hearing a book coming, guys. Go for it.
There is no truth, only belief. The stories I have compiled interpret my experiences, my observations, my readings, history lessons from the local griots. I took those lessons and made them my belief. I have reflected, analyzed, interpreted, and contextualized them to reconnect to the past. My belief is my story. So I'm writing from my perspective, I'm writing from my experiences, I'm writing from my readings, and every one of us has a story. this is only part of mine. So let's go to swimming lessons.
You see how good he is? That he even can analyze his writing. Keep going, guys. Keep going. Show off.
Now this this swimming lesson is a very it's one of the shorter of my pieces, and believe it or not, this was a one-page lesson from a writing class in school,
Oh.
and I developed it. This professor said, "Okay, guys, write a one-page essay on something traumatic." So I write about this essay. I write about this swimming lessons. You can say swimming lessons or swimming lessons, depending on your interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my A for the paper. But at the end of the class,
Excuse me.
at the end of the class, the guy called me up. Professor called me up and he said, "Mr. Massey, did this thing really happen?" Now, I know that this is a country obsessed with therapists and psychologists and abuses. He said, "Did you, if you have a child, would you teach him to swim like this?"
Oh, God.
No, and I'm saying to myself, I don't want to be in this class and this professor looking down at me as somebody who was abused. So I said, no, this didn't happen. But this indeed happened. This is one of the things that came out of
That
reality,
experience.
the experience. But I'll give you just a couple of pieces. The actual
A couple of parts.
couple of parts.
Let's go with that swimming
Okay.
lesson.
Calm was the water that morning. And by the way, my father was an expert swimmer. He did a lot of swimming in his days. His job involved swimming. So, there wasn't any idea that I should be scared to go and learn to swim from him. This was my father. Calm was the water that morning. There was hardly any breeze. The waves seemed to lose energy about 20 yards from shore. It was beautiful yet scary scenery. The water ended where it touched the sky, which was a long way off as far as I could see. Incidentally, I was just about 7 years. Somehow it seemed overcast at the beach compared to when we left home, when I thought it was a clear morning. I looked to the east for the sun, but it must have been too early. I had learned from school that the sun always rose from the east. I passed this information to my father, who seemed satisfied that I was a good student. The beauty of the scenery should have had a calming effect on me, but being calm was the last emotion in my body. My heart was pounding, and I was sure that there was a storm inside my stomach. I was scared. I tried to reassure myself that I was with my father, and he would not allow anything to happen. Besides, he was a good swimmer, or so he had said. However, I was beginning to have doubts. There was this feeling as though an organ inside my chest had detached itself from its proper place and it was about to force its way through my mouth. My hand couldn't stay still on my chest where my heart was supposed to be. There I was, all 90 pounds of me, facing an endless body of water I would have to conquer with only my father there to help. Help? Why should I need help? I reluctantly decided that it was time to get into the water. I walked up to the edge as a wave came in and allowed the water to caress my feet. Then I dipped my hands into the water and made the sign of the cross on my chest, as I had seen the older boys do on other occasions. They claim that you can tell the temperature of the water by doing that. I was doing everything to feel normal. Indeed, the confidence, as I knew this day I had to swim in the Atlantic Ocean. Without saying anything, my father placed his hand on my head. I immediately grabbed his left leg with both hands, leaning my head against his thighs. He was guiding me slowly into the water. The water was warm. Suddenly, the water was at my knees. I grabbed the leg a little tighter. The water was at my waist, at my chest, I felt as though I was losing control of my legs. Every time a wave came in, I seemed to lose contact with the solid underneath. I started feeling dizzy. The water was at my neck. I was fighting to hold on to the leg. I tried looking up to see my father. I felt the support separated me. I was looking for my father. Where was my father? Then I felt a push. I was falling with water all around me. I started fighting to get my head above the water. I was kicking and waving my hands frantically, all the time with my eyes open, something my father said not to do. I didn't even hold my breath. Another point my father had talked about and had warned me to do. Maybe it was a sudden push or just panic that had caused me to forget. I was underwater for about 5 seconds or 5 seconds to eternity. And there, at that early age, I began to understand the power of the brain. I, I couldn't know how I thought about so many things in 5 seconds. And I didn't know if these things I thought about came to me sequentially or everything just came to me all at once. I thought about I am providing an order here that may not be accurate. When I felt the push, I remember thinking, oh shit. That was how my father responded whenever something went wrong. So I understood that reaction. Then it seemed that my mother came to me and asked, why are you not in church? Suddenly I thought about the quarter I had found in the kitchen, a secret that I had kept to myself. I swore right there and then that if I ever got out of this predicament, I would let my mom know that I found it. And I bought coconut buns and Marby at Miss Clarice's cake shop, and that I also put the change in the collection plate at Sunday school. And I promised, with all that water around me, that I would honor my father and mother so my days will be so on and so on.
Right. The swimming lesson has a very part that we will discuss in a few after this commercial.
Home by Lily's Broches.
Welcome back, my people. Now in English. Okay, one of the attractions of the swimming lesson is the passage. Passage represents a part of the reading that where he mentioned something typical in all, let's put it, Latin American countries. Maybe they speak Spanish, French, or English. It's a tradition to call people other names than their name. And I want him to read this because I think it's very funny and it's really taking us to our roots. He don't read it, I read it, but he read it better.
I was
That's
married.
that's the beginning of the lesson, swimming lesson story.
I was merely 7 years old at the time of my first swimming lesson. Short and chubby, my nickname was Brian the Buffet.
Brian the
The
Buffet.
term used was false name in our culture. I never knew then what the name meant, but nicknames didn't necessarily have meanings. I realized at the time that everyone around me, young and old, had a false name. I guess those older people had their names from childhood, so I suppose they carried them for 40, 50 years or more. They were names like Sheep, 13, Ragaban, Fat Boy, which will be for a skinny kid, Skinny for a chubby kid, Gyala Watch Me, and Naka. It seemed that one qualification to live in Buxton was a nickname. They were friends whose real names I never knew until much later in life. For me, I believed I got my name because Brian was my first name and I absorbed a lot of food, hence the buffet.
Yes, and it's funny that he said buffet because this is a vegetarian guy that don't try hard to teach me about vegetarian. Another story that is going back to, let me say there. Hey, don't want to read this one. Going home to no one. Going home to no one was another of the first story also that I read, and also very powerful. And also, I think part of that story can be staged. And he's talking, he's open to us, a window or a door to our roots, to things that we forgot when we come to this other country or when we travel or when we forgot our childhood. And he opened that door and could bring back us even the ritual of the dressing code in our culture, in our time. And all those beautiful things you see today in a very touching story, very real and very powerful. Now we want to hear about that. Let's share that story.
Well, going home to no one is really a traumatic story for me um, because it deals with someone very close to me who had an ailment that really kills you before you die. And having experienced that, this was my first major work, and it actually sort of as catharsis for me writing it. There are a number of times I got so sad writing it, but trying to keep the focus on what the whole case was. The first line gives away what the entire story would be. Barely 2 years into my sojourn into the United States, she embarked on an odyssey back into the womb. And that is a story of someone that starts off. It's like there was a movie where the person was aging backwards. As they grow older, they were getting younger.
Yes, I think it's a Brad Pitt
Brad,
movie.
yeah, something like that. But this is about my mom, and it's very very traumatic when I started it. There is a cultural acceptance in where I'm from, where the elderly folks have a certain belief. One, and I'm going to read here, one very profound aspect of my mother's life was her willingness to go home, an attitude shared by many women in her generation. They all seemed to have made peace with their God and sincerely believed that whenever their God was ready, so were they. Not only were they prepared to go home, but they were constantly talking about going home. Consequently, they were not afraid of any earthly adversary. They took any sickness in stride with the refrain, and if it's God will, their faith cushioned them from earthly woes and their poverty, they being about 5 generations removed from slavery, helped them understand the generation before them. They worked hard and prayed harder and louder. Many lacked formal education, but exposure and experience determined their level of expertise in any specific field. Their generation lacked material wealth, but their spirits were rich and robust. Poverty made it easy for mom and others to believe that there had to be a better place, a place they were willing to accept on faith, a place they called home. But poverty was not unkind to good family values as they saw them. Those values flowed love, integrity, determination, compassion, respect, and pride, hallmarks of village life in the early days. Those values they passed down to succeeding generations. So that sets a basis. The idea of this narrative, is to capture the different normalcy that she went through during this time, because every day was a different type of behavior, and every day you had to adjust. There was no template for this type of ailment, and I think there's still not any template right now. But my mother was such a quiet person generally that when she started on this journey, it took us by surprise, because she was so aggressive at one time. And I should mention this. I passed this script to a friend of mine whose mother was going through the same issue. And she was glad she read it, because she said it helped her accept it, and it helped her anticipate like the next level of behavior of her mother.
You said that's making you a better writer because it's making something functional inside the fictional.
So let me just give you a passage here that I had to laugh at when I remembered it and wrote it. Mom was never a quarreler, except when it was with her children. With her peers, she found ingenious ways to end disagreeable conversations. I remember one neighbor who lived in the house in front of ours and who loved to engage others with her profanity. I was too young to know her issue with mom, but one day I heard the woman directing some very loud and profane comments in our direction. Mom never answered. Early one morning, Mom simply placed a chair on the porch with a black doll in the center, facing the neighbor's house. Black dolls were not popular then, and that was no ordinary black doll. It was jet black. Its head was elongated, and its lips were large and asymmetrical, dressed in bright red. That was the type of doll white manufacturers made to entice little African girls to hate their blackness and reach for a white equivalent. At about noon, Mom adjusted the doll's position to allow its backside to face the neighbor. The quarrel lasted less than one day. So she was that quiet. So it was excuse me, very disturbing when she started going through those issues. There's another part that, and this was a very dramatic part for me. Let me see.
Feel free to show your time, and I want that you share as much as you can on your writing.
As best as we could, the family tried to handle the situation. I stayed with Mom on several occasions, to allow my sister and her niece, they were part of the narrative.
Oh, good.
On one occasion, Mom had an accident. She had her bowel movement in the chair. I had to decide whether to pretend it did not happen and await my sister, or try to find the cleaning materials because I was in my sister's apartment, and I was trying to justify my inaction. But then I heard a voice. I guess in all of us is this inner voice. This voice is the core of our being. It comes to us in moments we rarely expect. This inner voice never screams, never shouts, is never obnoxious. Instead, it partners with us, establishing a covenant. It's always a whisper. A whisper commands attention, is very persuasive, and bullies us into action or inaction. My inner voice was saying, "This is mom. Do what you must." So I took mom to the shower, stripped her naked, cleaned her, and cried.
You're making me cry here. Good thing I have some teachers here, guys. Well, I have a heart too.
Well, I'm going to read a final piece here. This is a very long narrative, and as I said, it was very dramatic.
It can be a novel itself.
Yes, it
But
probably
have to
could.
be part of the collection of writings.
With mom at the nursing home and the acceptance that she would never be with us again, Shirley, my sister, and I began talking about preparing for her death. It was the first time we had mentioned the word connect concerning mom. Even though we both understood the inevitability of death, we never consciously and openly accepted that this journey was a path to the end. What I believe we did not want to admit at the time was that death was not only ceasing to breathe and be buried, death also meant not living with a purpose, not having goals, not having a plan for tomorrow. Death was being irrational in a natural state. For the last 2 years of our journey, mom was a walking, talking, breathing, mindless organism.
Wow, those are strong.
Thank you. That is,
And
it's a story you have to read to understand the depth
yes,
of
it's
this
very
disease.
philosophical. It's very touching. My mother just turned out 80. Thank God she's okay. So far, it's better than me. But just to think that it can happen to my mother is a very thing. I don't know. This is the story that you talk about the ritual about the clothing.
Yes.
Tell us about that because
No, I
that's
have to
something that
find
we
it.
experienced.
I have to find it.
I think it's close at the beginning. Because I learned one of the things that I learned to come in this country when I see these people going to church, they were so dressed. All my friends was the female, especially very nice dress, with hats and the best clothes. And innocent, I asked, why do you all have to dress so nice to go to church? Because in my country, the dress nice when you was going to a party. And the person I remember was Miss Ogreda from Pier 77, rest in peace, that she said to me, very serious, Hector, if you're going to go to visit somebody special, you will not put the best to show that person the respect and admiration? I said, yes, I will. And she said, that's why we got dressed, because we wanted to show the Lord how important He is for us and how nice we dress to receive Him in Sunday called, you say in English, or Mass?
Mass, yes, Sunday Mass.
On Sunday Mass. And one of his passages on the story is about how the mother followed the ritual of dressing, called dressing, right? That's the way to say it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that thing, I just started knowing English, but he understand my English perfectly. He don't have to Google like you will probably have to.
First of all, she had, and this is what was not really only for my mother. It was a
No,
cultural.
no,
It's
no, that's a cultural thing.
issue. You have your what they call your going out clothes. You have what they call your road clothes. You have what you call your special clothes, which is the church, like the church at certain
And
functions.
we're interrupting him, and you have your special showing off your country teacher. Yeah, okay, now.
Yes. So she had this routine. So when, let's say, she's going out, if she's going out in a special way, somebody has to be home, because in those days the women used to wear what they call a slip. I think it's a petticoat they used to call it, and the brassiere string had to be right there. You have to pin it so that it doesn't shift, and you're only seeing one piece coming down. You're checking her slip. It must not show. You're checking her stockings.
I should take him to that theater to teach us about how to dress.
So she was that meticulous with her dress, which caused her actually to recognize that something was wrong earlier. Because when she started going out when she started going out wearing her home clothes somewhere else, then you realize this is not the person we know. So it helped in some way to understand that it was, not all is well, and she's introducing a new normalcy to our lives. But she was my mom, loved her dearly, but it was very traumatic to witness the journey that she took us on.
We're reading that or no?
No, we're not.
You're not ready to read that
No,
part.
because
Okay, I respect that.
We don't.
He said about now. Tell us, we already hear some from going on to no one, swimming lesson, the introduction, and the Taliyah in boxing. And just talking about a book coming. Tell us, what's the intention? When that book will be ready? It's a process, a long process. It's something that you're planning to do when you retire and you will be in your paradise. This guy have like 5 houses. At least I know 3 personally.
That's the word.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah. The articles, the narratives are ready. I'm just looking at trying to get some.
Published?
Yeah, well,
And you will tell me that somebody you want that day.
Yeah,
draw,
we're trying to get some
illustrations.
sketches. Yeah, some illustrations
Sketches.
in it, and I'm trying to get someone. It's already the preface I wrote already, and
he needs another preface, and guess what? I'm volunteer to read a little short thing about it because I love that.
yeah, you can do that. You're welcome. And I'm trying to. It should be out maybe in the next 3 months, 2-3 months. I don't know.
Wow, we got the exclusive in Héctor Luis Sin Censura. Uncensored Héctor Luis.
I don't know the publishing, the business. I don't know how long it takes, but hopefully the narrative is done. The narratives are done, and shouldn't be about three.
Okay, it was a pleasure to have you in the show.
Well, it was really a pleasure to be here.
And I'm so happy because I really learned a lot from him. I don't want to cry, guys, that I cry like a pussy all the time. But I really learned a lot. He teach me a lot. He even, I'm so bad in music, and thanks to him, I learned about jazz. He's very dedicated to the music, to the jazz, to the blues. He teach me about singers to me and the class. And it's really his passion. He's a man full of passion, full of culture. Him including make me recognize that I'm black and that I have to be proud of it. You see, he's crazy. He changed people's life. When the life that he touched, it can change. And I experienced that. And I always say that he can be a perfect minister. But he also is a bad dog. He also is a bad dog. That doesn't mean that he cannot service on Sunday and do whatever he wants the rest of the week. But he's a very, very good person.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Mr. John, if somebody tried to contact you, are you in the media? Are you in the Facebook? Any place that they can find you?
Well, I'm in Facebook, but I'm not active on Facebook.
I don't want that you get the fun because how you already said that you have 5 houses and you will be getting called like hell.
No, I am not active. Active to the extent that would be.
Okay, but listen, when the book is ready, you're coming back here to present the book. I guarantee that.
That's a fair.
And then we will know how to contact that. Again, he had problem. If you want to contact him, just contact me.
Yeah,
I'm very close to him, and I just call him. And we made the deal.
That's a good.
And you guys, please don't forget to click like, make a comment, subscribe if you are not subscribed to Héctor Luis Sin Censura. We're trying to do this new season in English because it's fair to my English-speaking people enjoy my craziness on the show and the talent of our people and the community in English because I follow English. I learn English. Follow you, and I sing like Mary and West Side Story. I'm gonna live in America. Everything in America, and that's why I have to be English. And to closing the show, I'm giving to myself the second person that is receiving the pen of Héctor Luis Sin Censura pen with the logo and everything that he can continue writing his stories uncensored. And the first 3 people or persons that subscribe to this show and make a comment, I will give a pen. And this is a collection pen because we don't have that many. You can write uncensored all now on. Please include some porno one day or another. People also have to, everything is not a soul winning something for the meat, God, from the flesh. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't know this wasn't censored. And by the way, what do you think about my nails? No, don't say nothing. See you guys. Bye.